Every student, every day, prepared to shape tomorrow. It isn't just our vision. In Peoria, it is what drives each of our employees to give their all to make sure that we truly are working for every student every day. All of us working to make sure that no child's needs are overlooked or unmet. In 1889, when our first school opened in an abandoned grocery store near a bumpy dirt road dramatically named Grand Avenue, it was easy to look out for every student as there were only about a dozen, and they looked just like the small group of Illinois natives who founded a new Peoria in Arizona. With the arrival of the railroad in 1895 and a direct transportation link to Phoenix, our city and district grew along with the crops in the endless sea of the West Valley farmland. That growth led to more classrooms, while at the same time, the district struggled to incorporate the area's newly diverse population into the student body. For decades, every student, every day would be put to the test, and while we would sometimes be on the wrong side of inclusion, our vision pushed us to expand our horizons.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Early in World War II, our board voted to accept Japanese American students who had been driven out of other West Valley schools due to federal restrictions on their travel. In the early 1950s, the move towards every student gained steam when the board voted to allow Black students to attend regular classes in the district. The same board also moved to bring English-speaking Hispanics into regular classrooms. Every student, every day was finally becoming a reality for most students, but there was still much work to do. In 1953, female students were finally allowed to participate in school athletic activities. In 1965, the board adopted a plan for educating special education students. In 1978, the district hired its first 2 full-time gifted education teachers. In the span of less than 100 years, Peoria had grown from a one-room class of 12 white students to a district of more than a dozen schools with a population that was 46% minorities, and steps were taken to ensure that our staff reflected that diversity. 40 years later, our district serves nearly 40,000 students in programs across 43 campuses. Those students may or may not resemble the students in that first classroom, and their families may look nothing at all like the early settlers in the West Valley, but our commitment remains every student, every day. That holds true for our staff as well. Invaluable employees like homeless liaison Maurice Stevens and Cindy Nunez, who are responsible for ensuring the education and well-being of the unhoused students in our district. Or Lori Garcia, whose exceptional student services team provides sound academic opportunities for students at all levels of ability. Katie Lukacek, our gifted coordinator, works with her team to provide an enriched and challenging educational experience for our gifted students. Phil Camacho, our transportation director, whose team provides transportation for all students who need it, from regular buses to specially equipped vehicles for students with special needs. Sandra Sawshow, Director of Food and Nutrition, whose team provides daily meals for thousands of students regardless of their ability to pay. Dr. Debbie Pischke and the Early Childhood team provide the first educational opportunities in our district for our youngest students of all abilities. Sarah Fox and the Family Resource Center team provides activities, information, resources, and referrals for families with children aged birth to 5. Dr. Colin Manahan and the facilities team that maintains our classrooms and activity spaces, as well as keeping our campuses safe for all students. And everyone you see in the room with you today. Peoria Unified School District reflects the values and aspirations of our community through the dedication and efforts of each and every one of our employees. Every student, every day is our vision, and the work of every Peoria employee is the reason we are able to achieve it. What will you do to help a student shape the future? Thanks to the Arizona State Tax Credit for Public Schools, it is possible to pay up to $400 of your child or anyone else's K-12 extracurricular expenses and receive a dollar-for-dollar reduction on your state income taxes. Have a student participating in elementary or high school athletics? Pay their participation fees using a tax credit donation and receive a dollar-for-dollar reimbursement on your tax return. Have a student performing with their school band out of state? Pay their travel costs using a tax credit donation. Have a student participating in test preparation for the ACT or SAT? Pay for their prep courses and materials with a tax credit donation. A high school student taking a CTE industry certification assessment? Put that tax credit option to work. Only have fur babies and no students in our schools? Make a tax credit donation to help a class take an educational field trip to the zoo. Whether it's for your child, a grandchild, or just to help students out at your neighborhood school, the Arizona Public School Tax Credit Donation Program makes it easy to fund extracurricular and enrichment activities for K-12 students and to get a dollar-for-dollar reduction or refund on your taxes. Spend your tax dollars in your neighborhood and make the day a little brighter for the students in your local Peoria Unified School. You now have until April 15th to make and claim your tax credit donation. Go to www.peoriaunified.org/tax credit to find out more or to make an online donation today.
sizes, please. Actually, you know what, before we head to that, you know what, I went out of order. I need to step back. All right, moving on to Section 2, Public Hearing, 2.1, convene public hearing pursuant to ARS 15-905 and 15-905Q for review of revision number 1 to the expenditure budget, including maintenance and operations, district additional assistance, and classroom site fund budgets for fiscal year 2023-2024. So I just need a motion to move into our public hearing. I'll move that we move into the public hearing. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Donna, we have a motion made by myself and a second by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes.
President Sandoval.
Actually, you know what, Mrs. Donner, Ms. Rooks, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so you're going to have to run us through a voice vote on this one.
President Sandoval,
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks,
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Proudfit,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing.
Yes.
All right, motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. And just so everyone knows, Mrs. Rooks will be joining us this evening via the phone for at least the first portion of this board meeting. Mrs. Myers, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, colleagues, and community. This evening, I will present information related to the first budget revision to the Peoria Unified School District's expenditure budget for fiscal year 2024. Tonight, I will review requirements related to budget revisions and highlight the main changes to the maintenance and operations, district additional assistance, and classroom site fund budgets. I will also provide information on grants and cash-controlled funds. Stewardship of community resources is one of the 4 perspectives of the district's strategic plan. The annual budget process is part of this strategic perspective to solidify and adhere to effective policies, practices, and accountability for district resources. A public school district must adopt an annual fiscal budget each year by July 15th, and districts can revise their budgets in December and May each year. The district is revising the expenditure budget this December to primarily recognize a decrease in average daily membership and to update prior year ending fund balances in the current year budget and other minor grant-related budget adjustments. A final budget revision will take place in May for the current fiscal year. I would like to thank Veronica Fabella and Araceli Angel, our 2 budget analysts, for their assistance with the December budget revision. The annual expenditure budget for maintenance and operations, or M&O, is where the majority of the district's regular education and special education day-to-day expenditures take place. M&O expenditures include salaries and benefits, supplies, utilities, transportation, and other operational expenditures not of a capital nature. In this budget revision, the M&O budget is being increased $6,766,923, which is mainly due to the addition of remaining fiscal year 2023 carry forward, a decrease in average daily membership based on district enrollment, and a state-level recalculation of state aid funding. District additional assistance funds can be used for capital expenditures that include furniture, athletic equipment, textbooks, instructional aids, computers, and software. In this budget revision, the adopted district additional assistance budget is being increased $4,635,962 to recognize a fiscal year 2023 carry forward adjustment. The Classroom Site Fund supports base pay and performance pay for certified classroom teachers and other eligible staff. The budget in this fund is being increased $949,216 to reflect prior year carry forward amounts not included in the fiscal year 2024 adopted budget. The first expenditure budget revision also includes budgeted amounts for non-levy cash-controlled funds. Several examples of cash-controlled budgets are listed on this slide. In the December budget revision, adjacent ways decreased from $603,124 to $349,651, and indirect costs increased from $3.5 million to $5.9 million. Also included in the second budget revision are adjustments to various federal and state grants to align to actual Arizona Department of Education approved awards, with the total federal and state grants decreasing from $60.5 million to $58.9 million with our December budget revision. Administration has previously shared that Peoria Unified has ESSER reimbursement grant funding in place for fiscal year 2024. $23.8 million of funding is in place from ESSER 3 and was included in our adopted fiscal year 2024 budget. And this amount remains the same with our December budget revision. The grant funding is being used to support the math and science textbook adoption, summer school technology purchases, instructional aids, resource purchases, staff training, and related professional development. Based on the information, administration this evening is recommending that the governing board approve the first budget revision to the fiscal year 2024 expenditure budget later in the meeting agenda under the action item. This concludes the presentation. This is a public hearing, and so at this time, the community can offer comments or questions, and I am also available to answer questions from the governing board regarding the budget revision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Yeah, we do not have any public comment tied to this line item this evening. Board members, any questions, comments at this point? I know this is also going to be discussed and presented for action in the action section of this agenda. So no questions or comments at this point. It doesn't mean that you cannot ask those questions or comments as we go through the agenda. Yep. Ms. Rooks, any questions or comments tied to 2.1?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Myers, thank you. All right, moving on to 3.1, consideration to adjourn public hearing. I do need a motion to adjourn this evening's public hearing.
I will motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second made by myself. If you can run us through a voice vote, please.
President Sandoval,
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing,
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Proudfit.
Yes.
And motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. All right, so moving on to section 4, opening exercises, our moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Mrs. Ewing, would you mind leading us this evening?
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to section 5, address the agenda. Does any board member have either any adoptions or recommended changes to this evening's agenda? Mrs. Proudfit?
No.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Rooks?
I would like to possibly move the action item 10.1 to the beginning of the meeting behind recognition.
Okay. Do you want to move, since they're somewhat related, 10.1 and 10.2?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll second that. And Ms. Donner, there is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Donner, there is public comment tied to 8.4 staff travel requests. So in addition to Mrs. Rook's motion to move 10.1 and 10.2 to the beginning of this meeting, I would also like to pull 8.4 from the consent agenda. Do you want those as two separate? Do you want those as two separate, or can we combine those two, or do you want them?
Yeah, President Sandoval, yes, you can combine them.
Okay.
One motion.
So to be clear, for this evening's agenda, we'd like to move 10.1 and 10.2 just after 6.1, which is recognitions.
President Sandoval, please allow me just a moment to make those changes. And just to clarify, we are moving 10.1 and 10.2 to follow recognition, and we're also pulling staff travel, correct?
8.4, we're pulling it from consent and then dropping it into the appropriate section.
Very good. Give me just a few moments to make those changes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I appreciate it.
President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinets, and community, thank you for your patience. I have made the changes you've requested, and we are all ready to open the voting.
Okay. Can you run us through a voice vote on those changes, please?
Yes, I can. Just to clarify, we have President Sandoval as making the motion, and we have, we have Mrs. Rooks as making the motion, and President Sandoval is the second?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I will run you through a voice vote. Mrs. Rooks.
Yes.
President Sandoval.
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen.
Yes.
Mrs. Proudfit.
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing.
Yes.
Thank you.
And motion passes with 5 yeas. Thank you, board members. Mrs. Donner, thank you. I know there's a lot of movement in the agenda, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Let me just refresh my screen here real quick. Okay. 6.1, recognitions. Welcome, Ms. Ari.
Well, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet, and guests who have joined us. Tonight we have a few recognitions for you, but I'd like to begin by recognizing an incredible student from Cactus High School. Cactus senior Cougar Jade Reyes had the unique opportunity to serve as a keynote speaker at the Nice K-12 Cybersecurity Education Conference that was recently held in Phoenix. It had more than 500 educators from across the country in attendance. And when planning for this year's conference, Nice shared that they were looking for an exceptional high school student who excelled in cybersecurity, planned on going into a cyber career after graduation, had a compelling story, and was a confident and comfortable public speaker. Cactus High School's Mr. Ken Mattern recommended Cougar Jade to serve in this very important role with support from his Air Force Junior ROTC instructor, Lieutenant Colonel Roel Zamora. Cougar Jade met all of the criteria that Nice was looking for in a keynote speaker. He was the winner of the Cactus High School's Air Force Junior ROTC Cyber Academy Scholarship in 2022, ranked #1 out of 150 ambassadors of the Hugh O'Brien Youth AZ Seminar, also in 2022. He's been featured in an online article in Computer Science for All, highlighting an AJF ROTC demonstration project, an initiative used to expose more high school students to computer cybersecurity education. And while he can share a little bit more with you on what it was like to serve as a keynote speaker, what that experience was like, we want everyone to know just how proud we are that he had the opportunity to represent Cactus High School in our school district by serving in this role. Before I ask that he join me at the podium, I'd also like to share that Cougar Jade was not the only Cobra representing Cactus High School at the conference. He was accompanied by Tyler Black, a fellow Cobra who's a junior, was asked to participate as part of a student panel, and he comes from a family of Peoria Unified graduates, also in the cybersecurity field. Several other marketing students from Cactus also attended the conference: Vera Trammell, Ruth Rosas, Brooke Wallach, Abigail Malone, Ethan Ramirez, Mariah Green, Abdul Rahim Abdul Jalil. Last but certainly not least, the Cactus High School Air Force Junior ROTC, led by Lieutenant Colonel Zamora, who I mentioned earlier, opened the event. And so, of course, we are proud of all of these students. We received exceptionally rave reviews on the incredible keynote that Cougar Jade delivered, and we invited him to be here this evening. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Cougar Jade and ask that he join me here for your round of applause and to share just a little bit about what it was like to be at that conference. Please welcome Cougar Jade.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear about your experience, and yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we have plenty of comments for you.
Absolutely. So there was plenty of anticipation to this conference. Mr. Mattern kind of threw me into it, but I had a lot of experience in public speaking. He knew I was ready for it, and cybersecurity has always been a big passion of mine, so it was really close to home knowing I was going to be able to make my story before the public in the cybersecurity community, which I wasn't able to really delve into before this point.
Well, congratulations again, and just keep up the great work. But I definitely want to allow my fellow board members to also comment on your success. Mrs. Proudfit.
I'm just super impressed that at your age you have your first keynote under your belt. That is really impressive, and public speaking is a really, really hard thing to do, but it's a skill that's going to serve you so well. I'm so impressed with you. So great job and way to represent the district.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Proudfit. Dr. Sorensen.
Yeah, what a well-rounded young person you are. I don't know how many adults could public speak like that in that kind of arena. Obviously, being in the ROTC program, you know teamwork, you know leadership, you represent yourself very well, and I know Lieutenant Colonel Zamora has done great things over there at Cactus for a long time, so it doesn't surprise me to be looking at you as the future leader of our free world. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Mrs. Ewing?
I want to say congratulations, and what an honor to be speaking there. And it sounds like cybersecurity is certainly runs in your blood with all of your family members. So I'm sure it was a very proud moment for them to see you standing up there. And I can't wait to see what you do for the future. And thank you for representing the district there at that event. So thank you.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Mrs. Rooks?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations, and I'm sorry I'm not there to congratulate in person. I mean, that was a great list of accomplishments that you have with the keynote and all that you've done at Cactus High School, and, I look forward to hearing about your future, in Peoria Unified and even further on. So congratulations and great job.
Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to piggyback on what everybody's already said, but as Ms. Aria was speaking, there were a couple words that I really kind of, I guess, zeroed in on, exceptional and confident. So just, when I visit schools and sites and with students, always inspired, and I'm very inspired by the person that you are. And again, continuing to be the best version of yourself every day. So stay confident and stay excellent, and just continue being a student. I mean, continue to ask questions and learn every day. So thank you for just your excellence. Appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
President Sandoval, members of the board, and guests, I have an additional recognition this evening and highlighting another one of our incredible CTE programs, Career and Technical Education, something certainly that is a very big point of pride for us here in the Peoria Unified School District. And I'm excited to highlight some of our student leaders that have joined us this evening. If you recall, in October, we recognized some of our DECA students and some of the great things that they're doing across our campuses. Tonight, we have a group of leaders that participate in the Future Business Leaders of America, or you may have heard them referred to as FBLA. FBLA helps to prepare students for career in business or business-related fields. Those who are involved in FBLA are able to hone in on leadership skills, and it gives them a sense of confidence in areas like money management and establishing occupational goals. Through FBLA, students are encouraged to develop projects that contribute to the improvement of their home or of their community. And this evening, we are joined by a handful of our FBL leaders from across our district. I'm pleased to introduce them to you. I'm going to ask that they just stand and wave as I share their name with you tonight. Jared Weber, who is the state president for FBLA in Arizona from Centennial High School. Michael Whitworth from Liberty High School. Riley Brewer from Sunrise Mountain High School. And Hannah Macias from Centennial High School. And representing them this evening, I am going to invite Mr. Weber from Centennial High School up to the podium. He's going to share just briefly a little bit more about FBLA and how it has helped to shape his experience at in school. So please welcome him.
Welcome.
Good evening, board members, teachers, and staff. I get asked all the time, what is FBLA? Future Business Leaders of America grows leadership, helps students practice professional skills, networking through events, and empowers leaders and entrepreneurs. FBLA provides leadership opportunities in many forms, from working within your chapter to lead as an officer, facilitating meetings and encouraging the students around you to participate and take advantage of these opportunities to further their education with real-world experience and work in their communities. Not only can students serve in their chapter, but work at the state level, participating in state councils, working under state officers, providing FBLA Arizona fantastic leadership and educational experiences through conferences and competitions such as regionals, state, as well as the online testing tournament, which just ended on December 3rd of this year. In my time as part of FBLA Arizona, I've been a member since my freshman year, having the incredible privilege to serve twice as an Arizona FBLA state officer. During my time at Arizona FBLA State Office, I've had the incredible opportunity to serve as a student leader at the state level for 2 years of my high school career. In this position, I have set up and facilitated as a keynote at conferences with over 1,500 students in attendance, written and facilitated workshops on multiple occasions, and posted and created promotional content as well as informational series for our social media, as well as this year serve as president of Team 62, leading in FBLA Arizona for my senior year of high school. Without this organization, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish near anything what I've done in just these past 4 years, learning the ins and outs of professional environments through competitions I've participated in, such as international business and parliamentary procedure, showing how to creatively solve real-world problems in a professional environment and how to properly navigate and improvise in professional meetings. In these role-play events with only 20 minutes to prepare, you were challenged to use your knowledge of the content you've chosen to study and speak with real industry professionals who take time out of their workday to come speak with members and provide insight to the application of these skills learned through FBLA competitive events. Granted, business may be our name and game, but with over 75 different competitive events and a wide variety of workshops and sessions, FBLA is an incredible organization prepared to educate students and provide real-world experience for any career and challenge after high school. We aim to be accessible and a powerful tool for shaping competent, aggressive business leaders with professional attitudes for any path one may take in life. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Proudfit.
I just want to say again how impressed I am with you. That was such a great summary of what FBLA is. And as a business owner, I can tell you, you are like so far ahead. I would hire you right now. You're like better than 90% of the people that we have apply already, and you're still in high school. But one thing that I think is really special is the ability that you have to make an impact on the younger kids at your schools and what you're doing to empower and show them what's possible, show them what's available to them in the Peoria district. And I think what you're doing is going to have such a bigger impact than just the incredible impact it's going to have on your life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Proudfit. Dr. Sorensen.
Yeah, you nailed that elevator speech. I mean, the way you killed it, no doubt about it. And huge advocate of CTE, FBLA, learning those practical post-secondary skills that you're already coming out equipped, ready to find your career and a fulfilling life with purpose, identity, and community. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Mrs. Ewing.
One of the things that I've noticed when talking to especially the industry leaders that work with FBLA, our CTE, or whether it's the MET program, is they are continually impressed on the caliber of the students and just the things that our students can do. So that says, and because they see that high caliber and the excellence of the program, that they want to keep coming back and they understand the importance of investing in our students. So that says a lot to you and to all the students who are in our CTE programs and our FBLA on all of the great hard work that they put into it. And I know it couldn't be done also without the volunteers and stuff that we have in those programs, so I appreciate that. But congratulations on all that you've achieved. I'm so glad that you've had this opportunity, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Mrs. Rooks, questions, comments?
Yeah, I'll just echo what everybody talked about because your presentation that you just gave was outstanding. I'm completely inspired by it, and so that shows with the other students there, and I'm sure across the other schools, with your inspiration and your drive and helping others. And, you know, just thank you for what you do, and I look forward to seeing more of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Yeah, Mr. Weber, I mean, it's, you know, there's a saying that that reads, the two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And very proud of all the programs that we have across our district, from CTE to FBLA to our, you know, junior ROTC programs that really provide our students with those opportunities to find that purpose and really gain that confidence, right, and courage, really, to be up in front of many to speak. So thank you for your courage, and Ms. Proudfit hit on something that I think is very important as well. You know, as you continue along and realize your success, I mean, you know, yes, you know, make sure that you look at those who are coming up, you know, after you and lift them up as well. So congratulations, and again, thank you for being you.
Thank you. And it really couldn't be made possible. I'm just a product of it, but it's the incredible leadership of advisors like Mrs. Kaner from Centennial High School and our state advisor, Missy Goodman for FBLA, that make all of this possible.
Thank you for that. Couldn't agree more. Appreciate that.
Well, Mr. Weber took my next line, which was our incredible advisors for all of our CTE and the parents that are supporting these wonderful leaders. As you can hear from JFROTC, cybersecurity, to all of the different CTE programs, we just are so grateful for the educators that we have supporting our students and for the families that are supporting them. One final CTE recognition before we move on. Governing board members, I'm afraid you can't see them very well, but right in front of you, in front of the dais here, are some poinsettias that were delivered earlier today as a gift to you. They are from Peoria High School's Ag and FFA students. They were growing these and have spent some time delivering them around the valley in some senior centers, but they did drop off one for each of you for the holidays, and Mrs. Rooks will certainly make sure that yours gets to you, but we did want to recognize them and thank them for delivering some holiday cheer here to our governing board meeting. Thank you.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's one more than the number of board members that we have. Is that right?
I believe so, sir. I think that
that
one is for another guest that we'll be talking about later.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, moving down to 6.2. Ms. Fesley, welcome. 6.2, consideration to approve a contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers as superintendent beginning July 1st, 2024. Ms. Fesley, welcome.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, community members, and cabinet. It is my pleasure to bring forward tonight for consideration and approval the contract to appoint Peoria Unified's next superintendent. We have been working diligently since August on a thorough process to bring the best superintendent here to Peoria. You, the board, have gone through a screening process. We brought candidates to Peoria, and those candidates went through stakeholder interviews with certified staff, administrators, classified support staff, community members, students, and cabinet, and I'm sure I'm missing a few others. The candidates went on site visits and also had the opportunity to participate in an e-forum for our community members. All stakeholder groups provided valuable feedback to you as you considered which candidate would be the best to continue leading this great district. Your role as a governing board is to hire the superintendent, and you have done a tremendous job of working through all the information that has been provided to you to help make this most important decision. We appreciate the work that you have done during this process from August to now. And I also wanted to also thank Mrs. Danielle Airy, our Chief Communications Officer, and her department, along with McPherson and Jacobson, the consulting firm that has got us to this point tonight. I was invited this week to a meeting with our high school student body presidents, and they discussed the process that took place, and they were so excited when they heard that Dr. Summers was chosen to enter into contract negotiations with you. They shared what a valuable experience it was for them to be a part of this process, and they felt like you really listened to their feedback. Across the district, we have also heard that same communication from many different employee groups, from our schools and our associations. So tonight, President Sandoval, it is my sincere pleasure to turn it over to you and the board as you consider to approve the contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers to be Peoria's next superintendent beginning July 1, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Vesely. And if I may, I too just want to thank everybody, all of our students, teachers, and staff, our community, for being a part of this process. Your voices are invaluable. Your input was invaluable without question. And I also want to thank my fellow board members, there were a lot of meetings that took place between board meetings and a lot of time that was spent, as we went through the contract process. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate your diligence there. That said, I do need a motion to approve a contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers as superintendent beginning July 1st, 2024.
I will motion to approve the contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers as superintendent beginning July 1st, 2024.
I will second.
Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing and a second by Mrs. Proudfit. If you can run us through a voice vote, please.
President Sandoval?
Yes.
Mrs. Rooks?
Yes.
Mrs. Proudfit?
Yes.
Dr. Sorensen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewing?
Yes.
And motion passes with 5 yeas. Congratulations.
So I'm the emotional one here. I want to thank you again. This is such an exciting time for us in Peoria. We've been through a lot since July and August, and it is my pleasure to now introduce Dr. Summers and bring him up to the podium.
Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you, President Sandoval, members of our governing board, as well as to the Peoria Unified Community. And there's some tough acts to follow, so I feel like my public speaking skills are going to be put to the test here, following some two outstanding students. Somewhat serendipitous that I can be here with you this evening, and I have some very special people in the audience that I'd love to introduce with me here. So I'm going to start on my far right, my incredible wife, Andrea, who has supported me through everything. It's just so unbelievable that we're in a position to be able to now take the next steps in our journey here in a vibrant community such as Peoria. And I have two of my three daughters here with me. And part of the reason we're here is because of my oldest daughter, Serene. I believe just finished her last official class today at Grand Canyon University. And will be graduating tomorrow. So we're just so incredibly proud of her. And that's the real celebration, in addition to just being able to see her grow and blossom. Other big news is that she's actually engaged to be married here in Mesa, Arizona in March. And sadly, her fiance wasn't able to join us this evening, but I know he's with us here in spirit. So just big shout out to Jacob as well. And then my youngest daughter, Sienna, who is just a phenomenal student and dancer and just the joy, well, the twinkle of all of our eyes. And then, of course, it's always a middle child that just is sometimes lost in the equation. She's not lost, I promise. She's unfortunately just very ill. And so wasn't able to make the trip with us, unfortunately. But she is a freshman at Old Dominion University, and I just have to dad brag all the time because all my kids are phenomenal. My family's just the pride of my life, and she is a fantastic student athlete at Old Dominion. And the women's soccer team, if you haven't noticed, they have made their 3rd consecutive trip to the NCAA tournament, won the Sun Belt Championship. She actually had the game-winning goal, which was super cool. So anyway, there's just so much to be proud of. I'd also, if it's okay, President Sandoval, I do have a few comments and just would appreciate the floor for a little bit of time here. For a couple of other real special people in my life, my mom and my dad, I just want to say hi. And I know they're tuning in. They have helped shape me into the man that I am, alongside so many wonderful teachers and coaches and mentors. And that's a big reason why I stand before you. Is because there were so many that invested in me, in my upbringing. And then I've had the fortunate privilege of working with so many amazing teachers and mentors and coaches and administrators and board members, and to be able to just bring all of them with me to this next stage in the journey is just something that I'm extremely humbled by and just grateful for. And just a big shout out to all of the amazing and wonderful public educators and support staff and parents and community, because it truly is a village that helps raise each and every one of our students. And one of the things that drew me to Peoria, and I felt really a close affinity really from the very moment I opened an email that said announcing vacancy of superintendent at Peoria.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
I'll pretend that wasn't me. But the vision statement that you all have, that's not just words, but really the actions that you bring forward on behalf of every student every day and preparing them for tomorrow, is something that I feel very connected to. So I just want to express a little bit more gratitude, as was mentioned by Ms. Vesely, the stakeholders that were involved in the interview process, as well as the site tours. And I believe that included students, parents, teachers, support staff, administrators, community members, cabinet, and of course the governing board. Just the investment of time and thoughtfulness that went into that interview process. I was very impressed and inspired. And I think in any good interview, it's an opportunity to get to know a lot of the candidates. But I feel like I was able to get to know a lot of you as well. So thank you for all of the intentionality that went into that. And I think those are some excellent connections that I'm looking forward to deepening and building on here into the future. Clearly, there is a wonderful and strong history and rich traditions well over a century here in Peoria Unified. And so I often think about standing on the shoulders of giants, people that have come before us, that have really set the stage and created a path, and to be able to follow in those footsteps, and to be able to partner with you all in the success of our educational community, emphasizing excellence, innovation, and holistic student development. Something that you all hopefully will get to know about me as this transition occurs is just the deep passion that I have on behalf of all of our students, and just really excited about bridging into a new community and forging meaningful connections and relationships. I want to emphasize collaboration and open communication, and so obviously an open door to ideas, concerns, and aspirations, but I also invite and actively seek and crave your partnership and just the full engagement from our community in shaping the futures of the 36,000 plus students in our care. And finally, I'd like to offer just one more quick note to our Peoria Unified Governing Board for your public service, your unwavering commitment to education, as well as the holistic well-being, again, of our students, our families, our staff, and our community. It's going to be an absolute honor and privilege to work for and alongside all of you. And I eagerly look forward to continuing that focus and collaborative efforts into the future. So closing words, I'm just truly honored once again and humbled to serve as your superintendent. And I eagerly anticipate this fantastic journey ahead. So thank you once again for this incredible opportunity, and I look very much forward to all of the exciting work that lies ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before you run,
Yes.
board members. Mrs. Proudfit.
Yes, I just wanted to say, coming in as a midterm appointment and not elected, I really, really pore over those stakeholder comments and just the reaction across the board was that you were the person for the job. And so coming in, I hope you know how much the community and, of course, the board, the teachers, how much everyone just stands behind you and how glad we are that you and your cute family are coming to Peoria.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Proudfit. Dr. Sorensen.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who was involved in the process. It was lengthy and rigorous, including yourself, Dr. Summers, for applying and flying out and obviously impressing the community members involved. And it's a huge responsibility that I know you know is, but we do believe you are the person for the job to lead our community through preparing our students for future success. So I know you don't take it lightly, and I look forward to working with you as you start to influence our district. Congratulations.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Mrs. Ewing?
Well, I will echo what Mrs. Proudfit said, that it was really great to see that the community just all pointed towards you as the individual that we should choose. And I think that we as a board were also felt the same. So I'm really excited that our community can really rally around you. And I'm excited to, once you get through your listening tour, and once we have an opportunity to sit down on all the different ways that we can just continue with excellence in the district and setting our high standards, bringing high quality teachers and retaining them and all of those great things, because we're asking a lot, but I'm looking forward to working with you. I think you'll be a great leader for our district, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Mrs. Donner. Mrs. Rooks, are you still there? Okay. Okay, thank you. Dr. Summers, yes. Thank you for choosing Peoria. This district holds a special place in my heart. I know all the hearts of everybody in this room throughout the city of Peoria and Glendale, the cities of Peoria and Glendale. One of the conversations that we had was you're coming into a seat that is surrounded by high caliber leadership. This cabinet, all of our sites, we talked about all of our leaders throughout this entire district, and it is it's truly inspiring when all stakeholders really kind of narrowed in on an individual that is going to create inspiring work environments for the leaders throughout this district and our students. That is much needed, and I'm just looking forward to working, by your side, and and doing whatever I can to ensure your success, and which in turns, means you doing the same on behalf of the 4,000 associates, the 36,000 students, and the entire community, which this district serves about 200,000 people when you factor in all the variables. So, again, thank you for choosing Peoria Unified, your family. Thank you for opening up, certainly, and having a conversation with Mr. Summers and understanding his aspirations and wants to continue to lift up our youth. Arizona is a nice place to live for sure. I mean, it gets a little hot in the summer, but right now it's perfect. So just remember this moment. But anyway, thank you, sir. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Ms. Fesley, welcome back. All right, moving on to 6.3, consideration to approve a contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers in a transitional capacity, subject to a mutually agreed upon date. Ms. Vesely, welcome back.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board, community members, and cabinet. Well, once again, it's my pleasure to bring forth an opportunity for you to consider and approve a transitional contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers that would begin April 1st of 2024 through June 30th. Some of you might be asking, what is a transitional contract? What does that really mean? Part of Arizona state statutes allow school districts to enter into superintendent contracts for no more than 3 years. So the contract that you just approved is for 3 years, beginning July 1, 2024 through June 30th of 2027. We're excited to announce that Dr. Summers is available to begin his work with us in Peoria Unified on April 1st of 2024. So we're requesting that you, the governing board, approve a transitional contract that would allow Dr. Summers to begin his work with Peoria Unified on April 1st. This transitional contract will be important to all for a smooth transition and will allow Dr. Summers to work directly alongside Acting Superintendent Mr. Molino through June 30th of 2024. At which time Dr. Summers would then take over as our next superintendent effective July 1st, 2024. At this time, we would like to ask for your consideration and approval to approve a transitional contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers in a transitional capacity as associate to the superintendent beginning April 1st, 2024.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vesely. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Proudfit?
Nope.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing?
No questions.
All right. And as everybody heard, sounds like Mrs. Rooks is off to enjoy the performance by our children at their school. So I don't have any questions either. That said, I do need a motion to approve a contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers in a transitional capacity subject to a mutual agreed upon date.
I will motion for consideration to approve a contract for Dr. Kenneth Christopher Summers in a transitional capacity subject to a mutually agreed upon date.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second by myself. If you can run us actually with Mrs. Rooks no longer being connected via phone, we can go back to electronic voting, or do you want us to stay voice?
President Sandoval and members of the board, I have open online voting for you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Ms. Vesely.
Thank you. May I also just quickly, I wanted to give a special thanks to Acting Superintendent Mr. Molino on behalf of Cabinet and our staff and community. Mr. Molino, we are just grateful for all that you've done for us from July until now. You've taken on this special role, and I know you're excited to have Dr. Summers joining you April 1, and we're just excited, and thank you for taking on through June 30th. We are going to keep you in that acting superintendent role as we transition. But on behalf of Cabinet, thank you for your work, and thank you for continuing to help Peoria through this great time, and your leadership has been invaluable to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Vesely and Cabinet.
All right, moving on to 6.4, board comments. Mrs. Proudfit.
No, thank you.
Dr. Sorensen.
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing.
I don't have any for tonight. Thank you.
I do have a couple, so I'm going to be the odd one out this evening. But Mr. Molino, you're actually, part of that list for me this evening. Stepping into this role in this very large district, in addition to your capacity, your position that you currently sit in, right, has just, it's been invaluable. I just want to thank you, for stepping up to sit in that seat. And while we went through the very diligent process, very inclusive process, to bring on Dr. Summers as our new superintendent. But yeah, it's, when we talk about, you know, people and those individuals who, the 4,000 associates that work in the Peoria Unified School District, and you understand some of those characteristics just around not just work ethic, but also an understanding of why you're here, right? To lift up others, certainly our youth, and how you stand by another side to make sure that they're successful as well. So I appreciate everything that you've done, and thank you just again for being the person that you are, and absolutely proud to have you as part of this team in Peoria Unified. So thank you, sir. The other item I had the opportunity to speak to a junior JAG class at Sunrise Mountain High School, and we were talking about all the programs that we have across Peoria Unified to really, you know, allow our students to experience different career paths and opportunities, and to understand what moves them, what inspires them at an early age, which again is absolutely invaluable. So Mrs. Q there at Sunrise does a fantastic job. I got to listen to just all the great things that they do within junior JAG, from philanthropy to visiting different career paths and organizations. Again, just, you know, what we do in Peoria Unified to really run our students, or give our students just many opportunities to experience those many opportunities that will be in front of them as they leave our walls is invaluable. So thank you, Mrs. Q there at Sunrise for the junior class, and even Mr. Decker, I know, runs the JAG program there at Sunrise as well. That said, I don't have any other comments. Moving on to 6.5, superintendent comments. Mr. Molina.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests. I'll have a few, President Sandoval. So, last week, Peoria Unified celebrated another school receiving an A rating from the Arizona Department of Education. After submitting an appeal, Cactus High School has now been officially reclassified as an A-rated school. Congratulations to all those who helped make Cactus the high-quality learning environment worthy of this title. Peoria Unified also recently celebrated the AIA Open Division State Championship, or as we refer to it, the Peoria Bowl, where Centennial and Liberty High Schools competed for the varsity football state championship title. Liberty earned the state championship title, and Centennial was named state runner-up. Congratulations to both schools in advancing to the pinnacle of the football season. Sunrise Mountain High School senior Sarah Bird was named the winner of the Cuentista writing competition organized by the Spanish Embassy. This is a major accomplishment as the contest is highly competitive, seeing as these ladies competed against students from high schools with Spanish immersion programs. Sarah was presented this award by the Spanish Honorary Consul, the Spanish Cultural Attaché from the Spanish Embassy, and the President of the Spanish Association of Arizona. Congratulations, Sarah Bird, on this impressive achievement, and fellow Mustang Anna Guy also placed third in the competition. Now, many of you may recall that Liberty High Junior and Unified basketball athlete Tony Tua, also known as T. Ramirez, for making an incredible three-point buzzer beater shot. T's story went viral and landed him and his family seats at the Suns versus Warrior game this past week. He even had the opportunity to meet his hero, Stephen Curry, at the game. We congratulate T once more and thank all those in Unified Sports and Liberty who helped make this young man's dream become a reality. And dozens of students and extracurricular groups across Peoria Unified are giving back to the communities this holiday season. A few I would like to highlight are Sunrise Mountain Junior JAG students who packed over 50 boxes of essential items for those in need, as well as Estancia Elementary Choir, who visited Fellowship Square Retirement Community to sing carols alongside residents. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Molina. All right, moving on to Section 7, Public Comment. 7.1, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. As always, before we get in this, if there is anybody who's here for recognition who would like to exit the boardroom at this point, you are more than welcome to do so, and we'll pause for that. Congratulations again. Have a great evening. Okay, as always, public rules of conduct. The board president shall keep control of the meeting and require the speakers and the audience to refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is inappropriate to utilize a public hearing, the public comment segment, or any other agenda items for the purpose of making political speeches. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease such conduct upon the request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting room at the direction of the board president. That said, first public comment comes from Mr. Ryan Heath. And as always, we'll span 30 minutes on this segment and 3 minutes per individual. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Heath, and I am an Arizona attorney. But more importantly, I'm a father. I have 2 beautiful little girls, ages 5 and 2. I'm here because I'm looking for help from girls in this district. And by the term girls, I mean girls that are biological females, young, brave women who are sick and tired of sharing facilities, private facilities, with biological male students. Females have an inalienable right to privacy in spaces that are traditionally reserved and segregated based on sex. Both common sense and our laws have recognized this rights for generations. As a girl, you should never have to share an intimate space with a male student, especially because males commit 90% of violent crimes here in the United States. I've drafted a lawsuit against PUSD. It's fully funded. All I need is plaintiffs. The lawsuit is based on the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution, something I learned a lot about from my professor, Justice Samuel Alito of the United States Supreme Court. By forcing girls to use the same facilities as boys, PUSD is compelling girls to participate in religious practice. I'm bringing in the big guns for this in a metaphorical sense. Dr. James Lindsay, the world's leading expert on when an ideology crosses the line and becomes a religion, is going to be an expert in this case. I'm looking for girls who are willing to fight so that my daughters won't have to. If you're interested in joining this lawsuit, email me at info@heathlaw.com. Again, that's info@heathlaw.com. That's Heath like the candy bar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next public comment comes from Ms. Leanne Roberts.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Congratulations, Dr. Summers. So good to have you here. And Mr. Molino, you have been like a super interim superintendent. Super is absolutely what you are. I have a coworker. She works for this district. She was sent a letter to register with the SSA when she turned 18. She called the SSA and said, "Hey, there must be a mistake. I'm a girl. I'm not a man." And they said, "Oh, we'll fix it. We'll take you off. You bring your birth certificate." She did. She looked at it. It said she was a man. It took her 2 years to get that male off of her birth certificate. She had to register for the SSA because of a clerical error. She's a girl. She has been. She's got 2 kids. She had to go to the doctor, her mother, a lawyer, all kinds of people. And she works for this district. Thankfully, it got fixed. What sense does it make to make a rule about going into a bathroom based on your birth certificate when people make mistakes?
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Next public comment comes from Ms. Teddy Todd. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, I would just like to say congratulations. We do have a new superintendent. This is fantastic. On the community committee, 2 different meetings I sat in on. Well done. And I know cabinet had a lot to do with a lot of the parts that came together. It was phenomenal. And to see the community members speaking, thinking, rather unanimous. So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. And I want to give a special thank you, Mr. Molino. You've met with me many times. We have discussed some deep, tough issues. It's been good. I thank you. And you two are going to have a fantastic time. I predict it's going to be a good one. I wanted to say, having, my background, working in Ohio and with the Ohio Department of Ed, and being an administrator in many different places, and I'm old, so now I can talk without losing my job or anything else. That's a good thing for me. A superintendent provides the critical leadership to formal, continuous improvement plans, strategies, data assessments, processes, and procedures for the entire school district. It's a tough, fantastic, challenging job requiring high intelligence and people skills, along with education and business skills. I am really looking forward to this leader for this district. I've been around for the last couple of years, digging deep, seeing, listening, researching, and I'm beginning to think I know too much. It is going to be a system in which we've got a little time, that's all of us. We have a little time to really dig a little deeper in this time before he arrives in April, to really take a look. What's working, what's not, what is really good, what is pretty crappy. And let's get this somewhat cleaned up before that point. Our most important piece of work is to increase the proficiencies of all our students. Reading is absolutely vital. And then you can hit the math, the science, the history, and the writing. But all students need to be able to read. And we've got to put the money where those parts are. And that does go into teacher salaries. We need that raised.
Thank you, Mrs. Todd. I appreciate your time.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Next public comment comes from Ms. Laura Tepason. Sounds like she has left. All right, next public comment comes from Zachary. Welcome, sir.
Hello, President Sandoval, board members, audience members. This meeting is a little bittersweet to me because it's my last before I leave to go study for a semester in the Czech Republic. Since I've attended these board meetings, though, I've witnessed pretty bad policy making. When you study public policy like I have and rational decision making, you learn that it entails pointing out an issue and weighing the pros and cons of every solution, implementing the best solution. Unfortunately, the district has failed to even acknowledge the basic issues and ignored them. Looking at statistics, the district is in decline. In the past, many others and I have mentioned some of these issues, such as poor academics, poor college and career readiness, bad IEPs, indoctrination, unbalanced budget, bathrooms, etc. I wore my old Centennial gear because I care deeply for this district. In my senior year, I led the tennis team, I ran 2 clubs, I competed in speech and debate, and this is all even after my dad kicked me out for being a conservative. And, I had nothing, but I had a little bit of time, a little bit of money, and I put all of that into this district, into Centennial, because this is my home. If you wonder why people like me are so enraged at some of these meetings, it's because we care so deeply about this district, and nothing is being done to prevent its decline. If we didn't love it, we'd all be doing something a little bit more fun on a Thursday night. But who's at fault? And I don't blame the parents. I don't blame the students. I don't blame most of the teachers. I blame policymakers. I blame board members and administrators who have the ability and responsibility to make a change, but don't, while blindly voting on policy and not keeping accountability in these schools. Instead of addressing major issues, we've put forth a horrible calendar plan. We've gone after other board members and just not really acted on the people's issues. And if I'm honest, I'm very pessimistic about the future of the district. Our policymakers are just letting this decline happen. But congrats to Mr. Summers. I think he'll make a great superintendent, but he needs to listen to these people behind me because they know the issues. These are parents, these are teachers, these are people who care. And just don't let these people down. Start really digging in on policy and designing policy. Let it be discussed at least, because that's what this entire institution is here for. And I pray that you all will prove me wrong, that we'll see a lot of change, that we'll see the district improve. And I'll be watching from Prague, and I'll be back to hopefully a better district a semester later, but I'm not crossing my fingers. And if I don't see some improvement when I come back, I'm going to be campaigning, I'm going to be lobbying to make sure we see these changes. And so I just want to say thank you. Good luck to you all. And hasta la vista, baby.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. All right, final public comment comes from Ms. Janet Kleypaz.
Very good.
Thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Merry Christmas to fellow believers, members. I'm going to highlight the Declaration of Independence, short and sweet, a few statements. Endowed by our Creator, God. First words of the Bible in Genesis. In the beginning, God created. Unalienable rights. Impossible to take away. Abraham Lincoln called say that again. It's of the independence. Say it, what's that word again? My brain's going. Declaration of Independence. Abraham Lincoln said, I rebuke. It's a rebuke and a stumbling block to tyranny and oppression. I pray to my Creator right now, God, for spiritual cleansing of this Peoria School Board in 2024. Crush the evil in our schools. In the name of Jesus, amen. Let's go over Peoria School Board's tyranny and oppression of 2023 as it ends. Mass, harmful, unlawful, mandates are not law. Congress makes law. Know your history. Number 2, boys who want to be in the girls' locker room, that's debauchery. Acts of flesh, it's selfish ambition. See Galatians 5 in the Bible. Quit pushing satanic evil agenda on our Peoria school girls. Genesis 1:27 ends, male and female, God created them. 2 genders, 2 bathrooms, period. Oh, a 3rd bathroom for the worldly A to Z lettered people? Easy, cost-efficient, mark a teacher's bathroom, man-made. Teachers are adults. Stay out of our girls' bathrooms. 3rd, school shots we voted on. Giving permission. Are you making money on the room use? There are lawsuits. Divorced parents having different medical preferences for their children can be lawsuits. You allowing shots given in our schools. It's our tax money. Use it better. 3rd, the social workers. Instead of accepting Mayor Beck's additional police officers on Peoria campus, more social workers? Are you trying to reprogram? Leave our girls alone. Discipline. Lack of discipline. Lax discipline.
Thank you, Ms. Cleavaz. I
Public
appreciate your
schools,
time.
I'll continue
Thank you.
next meeting in 24.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that concludes this evening's public comment. Let's see, we did have an item pulled from consent. It is now 9.1, staff travel requests. That was also pulled or requested to be pulled by Ms. Tepason, but sounds like she is no longer with us this evening, so we will still have to vote on this line item. So staff travel requests, board members, before we move on, any questions or comments on this line item, which was in consent, but it's been pulled due to public comment? Mrs. Proudfit?
Not at this time.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I don't have any questions either. I do need a motion to approve 9.1 staff travel requests.
I will motion to approve 9.1 staff travel requests.
I'll second that. Starting, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. All right, motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 absent. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to section 10, action items. 10.1, consideration of revision number 1 to the maintenance and operations, district additional assistance, and classroom site fund budgets for fiscal year 2023 through 2024. Ms. Myers, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. I do not have any additional information to add beyond what I presented during the public hearing. Thank you.
All right, so let me just make sure we don't have any questions or comments from the board. We don't have any public comment tied to this line item. Mrs. Proudfit, questions, comments?
None for me.
All right, Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing?
No, thank you.
I don't have any questions or comments either. Thank you, Ms. Myers. That said, I do need a motion to approve the revision of the fiscal year 2023-2024 expenditure budget, including the maintenance and operations, district additional assistance, and classroom site fund budgets as presented. I'll move that we approve 10.1.
I'll second. Oops.
Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by myself and a second by Mrs. Proudfit. Board members, please cast your votes. And motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Moving on to 10.2, fiscal year 2025 budget process, budget team update, and minimum wage increase and approval of classified, hourly, and associated position placement schedules. Mrs. Myers, welcome.
Yes, well, good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, community, and cabinet. Thank you for the opportunity to present information on the district's budget process that has begun for fiscal year 2025 and an update on this year's budget team and the 2024 upcoming new minimum wage. I'll wait for the presentation to be released to me so I can advance. Thank you. Thank you very much. Tonight, I will provide summary information that includes budget considerations, compensation priorities, and compensation progress that has been made in recent years, as well as the budget team's participation in the budget process each year. There will be requested action at the end of this agenda item regarding the pending January 1st, 2024 minimum wage increase. And at the end of the presentation, Mrs. Vesley and I will both be available to answer your questions. Over the last several years, targeted budget priorities, including employee compensation, instructional resources, and facility utilization, have been a priority focus for the Peoria Unified School District based on the budget goal set by the governing board in 2020. The budget and compensation work the district has completed in recent years is a phased process with compensation priorities, including beginning teacher salaries, classified employee compensation, and compression. A budget team work group is part of the annual budget process with representation from certified, classified, and administrative employees, as well as association members throughout the district. The budget team is not a superintendent or governing board committee. Instead, it is a group of stakeholders who provide input on compensation increases, stipends, positions, staffing modifications, and benefit renewals each year. All budget team and administrative budget recommendations do require governing board approval. This year, I'm happy to share we have our largest group of stakeholders, as you can see from our slide. And in fact, we have 42 stakeholders who are working as part of the budget team. There are 15 certified, 15 classified, 6 administrators, and 4 related services members on the team. Mrs. Vesley and I will facilitate the meetings with resulting budget recommendations being brought forth throughout the spring for the governing board to consider, as well as at the end of our process, recommendations will be made to the governing board over 2 meetings to allow one meeting to be a discussion item with the second meeting being an action item for the recommendations. So this year we have a number of new and returning members, and we actually have already started meeting. Our first meeting was December 4th, and we do have meetings scheduled throughout the spring on Mondays from 4 to 6 p.m. The budget process has many components that I will highlight over the next several slides. Each year, the district's budget development is a multi-month process. It takes 5+ months every single year with input from schools and departments on budget requests, including new positions and position reclassifications. The budget team provides input on budget recommendations and compensation recommendations. The annual budget process timeline starts around November each year as new budget requests are compiled throughout the district. And also there's a review for alignment with the district's strategic plan. In addition, new fiscal year funding projections are developed by the Business Services Department. So our budget cycle is underway. The majority of the district's annual funding comes from the state of Arizona and is based on an equalization formula that includes a base support level that utilizes district enrollment multiplied by a base level amount and a teacher experience index. This is the same formula that applies to every single public school district throughout Arizona. The formula is associated with maintenance and operations and capital funding. Initial funding projections include a 2% increase for inflation funding to the base support level, continued district additional assistance restoration, and the 13% M&O override that provides roughly $33 million of additional funding each year to the district that was most recently renewed by our community in November of 2020. When making budget and compensation recommendations, a number of external and internal fixed and variable factors are considered by administration and the budget team every year. This includes student enrollment levels, new state funding initiatives, minimum wage requirements and increases, health care costs and employer-paid benefits, utilities, contracted service costs, and fuel costs. So every year we look at projected increases as well as any impacts we have both externally and internally for the district. This slide actually summarizes each phase of the process, which will result in compensation and budget recommendations for governing board consideration and approval, as well as inputs for the fiscal year 2025 budget, which we will propose in June, and then bring forward for adoption in July next summer. Compensation progress to date in conjunction with ongoing priorities is also an initial starting point each year. The next several slides detail compensation-related progress that is embedded in the annual budget. And I will just briefly highlight some of the main considerations that are listed slide by slide, including years of experience credited higher when we moved to 7 years of experience from 5 a few years back. Beginning teacher salaries, very important. We've had movement 2 times in recent years. That's a priority again for this year's budget team. Compression and salary schedule enhancements have been a priority in recent years. Bus driver compensation, hourly rate has also been a priority. Hourly employee placement schedules and classroom site fund have also been addressed. Utilizing pandemic-related grant funding, classified employee compensation, and retention and counselor compensation have also been reviewed and set as a priority. And most recently, merit and performance pay was increased this fiscal year. Return to work employees' salary percentage, stipends, and banded compression were also a compensation priority that was approved by the governing board and is in effect for fiscal year 2024. Extra duty pay, summer school work, and medical supervision of games, pay for nurses was also increased this year. This slide summarizes compensation increases to the base for the last 8 years. And of course, none of this would be possible without additional funding that has been received by the state of Arizona, including the 20 by 2020 initiative, as well as the restoration of inflation funding a number of years ago. And you can see with that additional funding, we have prioritized compensation to retain our employees. And over the last several years, 2 separate times, we've ensured that our base level increase was actually phased based on longevity for our longer tenured employees to address compression, and for many years where the district had salary freezes and raises were not in place. And of course, retention stipends have expanded for all employee groups as well over the last several years. And we've been able to augment the retention stipends a couple of times with some of the federal ESSER funding and pandemic-related funding that the district has received to support employee recruiting and retention, as well as classroom site fund. The portion of a certified teacher and other eligible staff annual compensation that is funded through classroom site fund has had an annual percentage increase year over year. And over the last 2 years, we've actually been able to increase that portion by 10%. That also will be a priority area of focus for the budget team this season. Compensation progress to date is compared annually to ongoing priorities. So we track ongoing areas of focus each budget cycle with budget team and administrative input. Each year, budget team members are asked to complete both a priority and expectations form at the beginning of the process so we can capture feedback from the budget team as we begin our work. This slide summarizes ongoing consideration and categories at the end of last fiscal year's budget team cycle and development process. So these are areas that we're coming back out of the gate saying, here's where we left off last year, and we want to make sure we're looking at these priority areas at the beginning of our process, including the need to continue to retain our staff, as well as recruit the best and the brightest to join our Peoria Unified team. The state of Arizona's minimum wage was a priority discussion at the December 4th budget team meeting. Prop 206 was approved by Arizona voters in 2016. A main purpose of the ballot question was to increase Arizona's minimum wage from $8.05 an hour at that time in 2016 to $12 an hour by 2020. Each subsequent year after that mark, that threshold, there continues to be an increase that's embedded in the law, and it's based on the Consumer Price Index as well as August to August year-over-year inflation. So we can look back in recent years at inflation as a whole, and you can see how that year-over-year inflation rate, that consumer price index, has actually continued to have an annual increase effective January 1st every year, going from $12 an hour to this last year, $13.85. And of course, there's a new increase that's going to be in effect on January 1st. We're moving up another 50 cents to $14.35 an hour. And it is important to note that Peoria Unified does not receive additional funding each year for these minimum wage increases. And the minimum wage applies to all employers in the state of Arizona, not just public school districts. And each time the minimum wage increases, there is an impact on all grades in the classified hourly employee placement schedule for various district positions. Each grade, and I have examples on this slide, looking at when the minimum wage was $12.80 an hour, and then the increase to $13.85 last year as a point of reference. The increase that we were required to implement ultimately caused 6 grades to collapse in this placement schedule to be at the same level as the new minimum wage. And in addition, it compressed the remaining grades. So that's a challenge because suddenly you have an inequity, if you will, in the placement schedule. The budget team and administration did make a recommendation to the governing board in May 11th, 2023, to basically put the spread back, grade level by grade level, and there are various positions in each grade to reflect what was in place prior to the minimum wage increase. And we've done that once before as well, but it's ultimately going to be something we most likely have to address on an annual basis. And so we were able to put the spread back in May. However, prior to doing that, anyone who was hired under the collapsed schedule up to that point once the new minimum wage went into place. And so knowing that, we have a similar scenario that will go into effect on January 1st of this year when the minimum wage increases from $13.85 to $14.35. And it will cause 4 grades to collapse in our current placement schedule and cause compression through the remainder of the schedule. And so the budget team and administration reviewed this fact on December 4th, and the budget team did vote, and administration is bringing forward a recommendation to ask the governing board to take action at this point in time to not only approve the district implementing the new minimum wage, which is required by state law, but also to immediately put the spread back in the placement schedule as well to recognize the change. And so with that, the action that we're asking you to take would basically move our current schedule that was approved May of 2023 to the new schedule that's highlighted to the right of this slide to align with the new minimum wage increase. And so, of course, the update of the classified hourly placement schedule will go into effect on January 1st for newly hired employees. We will also review this updated schedule and look at any employee who is currently with Peoria Unified grade by grade if this movement would put their current hourly rate below the new threshold for that minimum amount by grade, and we'll move those team members up effective December 2nd if anyone was below that new minimum. In addition to the classified hourly placement schedule changes, the new minimum wage will also require the district to make changes to our hourly special assignment schedule that's also attached to this agenda item. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mrs. Vesely to join me to review the changes that are in that additional schedule.
Welcome, Ms. Vesely.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board. So in front of you, we have the initial classified hourly placement schedule. And you can see that the spread has been put in starting at $14.35 This will be effective January 1st. And you can see in each of the categories as you go down the columns that we put that spread back in so that there'll be least impact to our employees and get this rolling on January 1. And as Mrs. Myers shared, that our wonderful payroll department of 5 will be working over that winter break so that pending board approval tonight, that spread can be put in and we will not have an impact to our employees. This will go in effect January 1, pending your approval tonight. Could we pull up the hourly special assignment, please? The only change that you are going to see here again would be those areas where we had the minimum wage at $13.85. Would you mind scrolling to page 2? You can see here that anything in highlighted in red was at the $13.85 an hour, and we have just changed those items to $14.35 an hour. Any other changes that might come forward through the budget team process for any other salary schedules will be brought back at a later date when we bring all salary schedules and final recommendations to the board in the spring. Mrs. Myers.
Thank you, Mrs. Vesely. We'll go ahead and go back to the presentation. And this does conclude our presentation this evening. Mrs. Vesely and I are available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Myers. And we do not have any public comment tied to this line item. Questions, comments? Mrs. Proudfit?
None for me, thanks.
Dr. Sorensen?
Thank you to everyone who put this together, and thank you for the staff that are working over break after this hopefully gets approved.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Ewing?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for putting all of this together, and I appreciate how that we're really making sure that we're thinking of all of the employees and how that the raise of the minimum wage affects their pay. So I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to the vote.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, agreed. I mean, this is quite a process, and you're right, that list of individuals who are part of the conversation, I appreciate that input. It's, hearing from different lenses throughout the district to understand maybe what may be impacting them or how, we can be better, as a district. I appreciate your openness to listening there. And I also appreciate the trajectory that we're on to continue to prioritize our people here within Peoria Unified, those 4,000 associates. So thank you that. And mostly from your department, I mean, how it positively impacts their checkbook, right? Their bank account. So thank you for that, or appreciate that. And I think it'll be up to Dr. Summers and Mr. Molina moving forward to make sure that all of our associates just feel that their value is worth more than the paycheck that they receive every week. But thank you for continuing on along this trajectory. Appreciate that. All right, if no further questions or comments, I do need a motion to approve the 2024 minimum wage increase for classified hourly staff and associated adjustments to the classified hourly employee placement schedules.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 minimum wage increase for classified hourly staff and associated adjustments to the classified hourly employee placement schedules.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Proudfit and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Ms. Myers, Ms. Vesely, thank you both. Have a great evening. All right, board members, we have a number of second reads. What I will do is make a blanketed ask on questions, comments. If none, we'll move on to the next item, if that's okay with you. All right, moving on to 10.3. Mr. Molino, second read of policy, section BCB.
President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests, administrations bring forward 10 policies for the Governing Board's consideration as second reads. Cabinet is available for questions as the Governing Board goes through the next 10 action items.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions, comments? I don't hear any. That said, I do need a motion to approve 10.3, second read of policy, section BCB.
I will motion to approve second read of policy section BCB.
I'll second that. Starting with a motion made by Mrs. Ewing and a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes.
President Sandoval, members of the board, I apologize. I need to get clarification on this motion wording here that I'm seeing. So motion to approve changes to policy section BCB as presented, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let me make a quick correction. Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize. One further clarification. Should the motion wording be motion to approve changes to policy BCB, or is it motion to approve second read of policy section BCB?
I mean, what I have in board docs is motion to approve changes, but.
President Sandoval, it would be changes.
Okay.
Thank you. One moment, please. I have changed the motion wording. Excuse me, President Sandoval, can you remind me who made the motion and who made the second, please?
Sure. The motion was made by Mrs. Ewing, and I second the motion.
I have opened online voting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 non-present. Moving on to 10.4, second read of policy section BE. Mr. Merlino.
President Sandoval, Cabinet is available for questions for the governing board, and we recommend the policy changes as presented.
Okay. Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve changes to policy as presented.
I'll motion to approve changes to policy as presented for 10.4.
I'll second. So, Ms. Darno, we have a motion made by Mrs. Proudfit and a second by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Moving on to 10.5, second read of policy section BEDA. Mr. Molina.
President Sandoval, Cabinet is available for questions, and we recommend approving policy BEDA as presented.
All right. Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve changes to policy BEDA as presented.
I will motion to approve BEDA changes to the policy as presented.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas, 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Moving on to 10.6, second read of policy section EBC. Mr. Molino?
President Sandoval, administration recommends approving policy EBC as presented.
Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve changes to policy EBC as presented. I'll move that we approve the changes made to policy EBC as presented.
I will second.
Ms. Donner, I have a motion made by myself, a second by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Moving on to 10.7, second read of policy section JFABDA. Mr. Molina.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, administration recommends to approve all recommended changes to policy JFABDA as presented.
Thank you, sir. Board members, questions, comments?
Will you just refresh my memory? I know we brought this up last meeting, but what was the benefit of the change?
So the benefit of the change specifically related to policy JFABDA specifically notes some changes for students, children entering foster care or a placement change. And essentially what the recommendation does is ensure that within 5 days of a child entering foster care, that the school will use its collaboration with DCS, ADE, and any other local education agency to secure both transportation and to the educational institution that is determined by this group for the best interest of the child's education pertinent to information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, comments? All right, hear none. I do need a motion to approve the changes to policy JFABDA. I'll move that we approve the changes to policy JFABDA.
I will second.
We have a motion made by myself, a second by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. And motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Moving on to 10.8, second read of policy section JK. Mr. Nettle.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, administration is recommending to approve the recommended changes to policy JK as presented.
Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve the changes to policy JK as presented.
I will motion to approve JK as presented.
I will second.
Mr. we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second made by Mrs. Broadfoot. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas, 1 not present. Moving on is 10.9, second read of policy JKD. Mr. Nettle.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, administration recommends to approve the changes as presented to policy JKD this evening.
Thank you, sir. Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve the changes to policy JKD as presented. I'll move that we approve the changes to policy JKD as presented.
I will second.
Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by myself, a second by Mrs. Ewing. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Moving on to 10.10, second read of policy section JKE. Mr. Nettle.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Administration is recommending to approve all the changes as presented to policy JKE.
Thank you, sir. Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve changes to policy JKE as presented.
I motion to approve changes to policy JKE as presented.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Proudfit, second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas, 1 not present. All right, moving on to 10.11, second read of policy section JLH. Mr. Nutt.
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, administration is recommending to approve the changes as presented to policy JLH this evening.
Thank you, sir. Board members, questions, comments? I don't hear any. I do need a motion to approve the changes to policy JLH as presented.
I will motion to approve JLH as presented.
I will second.
Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second by Mrs. Proudfit. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas, 1 not present. Thank you, board members. Moving on to 10.12, second read of policy section IHA. Dr. Hernandez.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board. Administration is recommending approving policy IHA as presented.
Thank you, ma'am. Board members, questions, comments? I hear none. I do need a motion to approve the changes to policy IHA as presented.
I will motion to approve IHA changes to policy as presented.
I will second.
Ms. Donner, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing, a second by Mrs. Proudfit. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to section 12. We have no discussion items this evening. Section 12, informational reports. 12.1, report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Airy.
President Sandoval, members of the board, we are wishing our students good luck with finals, to those who are taking them for the first semester, and then wishing you all a wonderful winter break.
Thank you. 12.2, legislative, state, and local updates.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the governing board. I do not have a report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. All right, 12.3, district budget report for the month of October 2023. This report is on our website for your viewing at your convenience. 12.4, budget, facilities, planning, and construction report, also on our website. 12.5, district enrollment reports for the month of October 2023. These reports are also on our website for your viewing at your convenience. Moving down to section 13, other business. 13.1, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Mrs. Proudfit, any items that you would like to readdress this evening?
No, thank you.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Mrs. Ewing?
No, thank you.
I don't have any either. Thank you. 13.2, requests for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Mrs. Proudfit, any items you'd like to request?
None for me.
Dr. Sorensen?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Ewing?
None today, thank you.
All right, I don't have any this evening either. Moving on to section 14, adjournments. Board members, I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:56 p.m.
I will motion to adjourn at 7:56 p.m.
I'll second that. Ms. Donner. We have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing and a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. right, meeting is adjourned. With 4 yeas and 1 not present. Thank you, Ms. Downer. Thank you, everybody. Happy.